This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 315.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am a little bit under the weather today for some reason or another, so this is going to be a short intro. But I caught up with my friend Anthony Palmoze. We just decided to chat and then record the chat. We had no idea. We had no topic to discuss. We just chatted. And we ended up chatting about BDR and them becoming obsolete and whether we agree or not agree. And we dig into it a little bit. We talk about BDRs. It's not an SE job, obviously, because we're talking about BDR. Anthony will explain what BDR is. So if you don't know what that means, he explains it better. So if you're interested in what BDRs do, how they think, how SEs end up working on opportunities, and if you're interested about a friendly rivalry between SE/sales and BDRs, this should be a fun show because I really make fun of Tony because he's a BDR, but in a very positive way. That sounded wrong. We had fun with each other. Anyways, that also may have sounded wrong. This is not my day. I'm gonna end here and let's jump into the show with Anthony.
Welcome back. We have no topic to discuss, so we're just catching up live. And you mentioned something about BDRs, and BDRs are kind of useless, you know? Well, that's the thing.
Yeah. Right.
Introduce yourself to the folks listening, if they don't know you.
Sure. This is great. For anybody listening, of course, everyone listening, I'm Tony Mosey, name actually Anthony Palmoze, but you call me Tony Mosey. I have been a BDR for the past two years. When I went to a software engineering boot camp, I got my first gig as a solutions engineer, and with the most recent experience at Dell Technologies as a solution architect, going to the academy. But then, of course, I had pivoted back to BDRing because of the workforce reduction. But here I am today, Tony Mosey, BDR extraordinaire, and love the tech space.
Awesome. What was you were saying about BDRs? Why would you say they're useless? That's shame on you. Don't say that ever again.
You're not hearing that from me.
What was the comment that you mentioned before we started?
Yeah, so if you look on social media, look on LinkedIn, there's these groups of people, and I think it's from the pre-sales group versus the sales group, more specifically the BDR group, where one side believes that BDRs is gonna be obsolete. That's gonna be a role that companies are gonna find as like useless or pointless. Yeah. And then there's another group, the BDRs and also the BDR leaders themselves who believe that no, a BDR is needed now more than ever, especially after the pandemic, for many reasons. So I don't know. I feel like there should be a little bit of a demystification. Yeah. We should demystify a little bit. How so? Because I believe BDRs myself. Maybe it's because that's me being in the role, but I feel that BDRing or a BDR is more essential these days, but in a specific capacity, right. And especially if we're looking future considerations.
So is it that BDRs are going to be obsolete, or is it that their jobs are going to be automated?
Well, one side, I would say the pre-sale side, but again, I don't want to point at one group. There's just people out there who do not believe that the BDR role is going to be something of importance in the future.
Okay. What is a BDR? Let's just jump in. Jump into BDR. We didn't even say what it is. What is BDR?
Yeah. So, and this is good because I think a lot of people who get into this, and again, I'm writing a book on this. Okay. So, and it's actually geared for those who are either making a career transition, either they got out of the military and now they're trying to get a civilian job, or they just got graduated college. But anyone who's considering this route here, I mean, I feel like this is just the great barrier to entry. But BDR is also known as business development rep, also known as sales development rep. There are also two types of BDRing, and the one that I'm talking about more is more on the sales development side, where you are the very first point of contact. You're the traditional cold call, cold email person. You are the top of funnel. You're trying to get pique people's interest. If they like it enough, then you move them on to the next phase to where they talk to a sales rep, an actual sales rep, who then actually tries to sell you on the product and then close the deal. But yeah, it's the idea of, if you think of cold calling and cold emailing, this is what BDRs and sales development reps do.
Right. So, like from the pre-sales world, I don't think many pre-sales interact with BDRs, so I'm not really sure why they would care if BDRs are obsolete or not. Like, I really don't care about you, Tony. That's all I'm trying to say.
And we should, and for the people who are listening, they should know why the SE doesn't care.
Are you asking me, or are you going to tell me?
Well, I guess this is rhetorical, but I mean, I feel, at least in my experience, the only reason why I have come in contact with SEs was because I said I wanted to be one myself. But the SE pretty much, sits back, relax, plays their video games until they get a meeting.
All right, so
you guys just
right now, all right?
You guys just sit back and just wait, relax, sip on your iced tea while the BDRs do all the work.
BDRs do all the work. Oh man, now this is becoming a rivalry which you shall not win. Well, okay, I admit. Well, it's not that we just don't interact with BDRs very often. Usually, by the time the deal comes to us, the BDR is already out. Right? Like they moved on to the next cold call while we do all the heavy lifting and help close the deal. And you just like what you basically you say, hey, you want to meet, and they say yes because it's that easy, right? And then we jump in, solve the problems, help the salesperson negotiate and close the deal.
It's so funny. I like how you say that. You say, it's so easy, which for me, for the person who I feel like I have the acumen, of course, I would say it could be easy, or it is easy. But for a lot of people, they find a lot of heavy work they have to do as a BDR, because it comes down to the researching, it comes down to the prospecting and finding out people who may fit the role. And then they still have to, they don't just simply say, hey, you want to get in on a meeting? They have to, in a sense, sell, and promote this product and say, hey, and tell them the reason why this product would fit for them.
So, I want to step back. I mean, a lot of perceptions for BDRs is you get a list from somewhere. Like do you know Grant Cardone?
Yeah.
So if he has videos on YouTube where he's just calling people, or have his employees call people, and they just have a list and they have a script. And they just call one person, they go through the script, and then call the next person, go through the script, and then call the next person, go through the script. In tech, I'm assuming almost every other industry is different from what Grant Cardone does, it seems. What is the job of the BDR?
Yeah, man. So they try to break it down into two ideas. There's like the day-to-day operational, and then there's also the strategic, right? So the day-to-day, operation is basically, going after a list of prospects, who fit what the organization is looking for. So for instance, if it's a software that deploys code, you're looking for individuals who are software developers, those who are in IT, even DevOps, development operations, because those are the people who are the intermediaries between the developers and then also those who give the say on how the code is going to deploy and where it's going to deploy from. And then you also want to go after key decision makers, the ones who are ultimately going to buy the product, the ones who are going to figure out like which orgs within the company are going to implement it and how they're going to implement it. So you have to go after, you have to do that diligence of research, going on LinkedIn, going on social media. Depending on the org, they'll give you a list, but it'll say, hey, we're looking for those who are in organizations that have 1,000 or more, or 20,000 or more, who are making 500 million in revenue. It has to be a minimum of that, and they have to be managers, directors, and vice president managers and above who are in IT or sales, or in this case, marketing operations or campaigns. So I mean, it depends on the organization, what the product is. They'll tell you a persona or a series of personas that you need to be going after. You get, maybe it could be a list. Some lists come from sometimes marketing, and sometimes you're in organizations where they're like, go hunt for it on your own. Just here's the baseline, here's the foundational idea. We need people from this size company making this much revenue within this kind of persona, and you just go have at it and go find it on your own. So it all depends.
Okay. So it's not like Grant Cardone where you have like, you're not calling the yellow pages. You don't have the yellow pages and you're just calling one person at a time.
Right. And what Grant Cardone is, I mean, I think his niche is real estate, and right. Yeah, like he has a specific set of personas that I think that's just his business model. Like he just focuses on that.
He used to, like, initially he made his money by training car salespeople. That was his niche.
Right. Oh, right. So yes, he has a couple different products. I know, like what is it, Cardone University, where he's teaching like car salesmen how to sell in his like kind of way. So he has a few different endeavors. I know a few different like business units. But
for him, every car dealership is a customer. So you can just call every single, like you can have a list of every car dealership and just call them.
Yeah.
Like you can all use his training. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's cool because I have a friend who works at Pluralsight, right? And I think they reach out to IT orgs or software orgs to help like managers implement that Pluralsight, which is an educational technology, into their org so they could train their employees or staff better. And I think one of that, like that Grant Cardone or that Cardone University, is kind of like the Pluralsight, where he reaches out to companies like a B2B, who then is able to distribute those user seats to then obviously for enablement. But like, yeah, like we don't, I guess we could have a list. Our list could be through like Zoom Info or sales, or where, or through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, where we, go to a company and then find the personas that we want, right? And then, click off on all of them and add them into a folder to then do outreach. So yeah, I guess if you could say, yeah, there's a list in a sense.
Okay. Or so there might be a list that you might have to actually filter some people out, or you have to create your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you say script, right? I heard you say that. I want to talk about that. Scripts, sure. Scripts are great for those who are brand new into the role, or whether they're new as a BDR or they're just new into the org. Yeah, use that as a wonderful foundation. But you also have to understand, if you're reaching out to more than one sliver of personas. So say there was one company I was at where I had to reach out to directors of IT, directors of software development, and directors of development operations. Those have slight nuances. You have to kind of tweak it, and each one of these speaks their own language. So you have to know how to toggle between that. Yes, a script is a wonderful foundation to use in the beginning, but then eventually you have to add in your own flavor, something that works for you and your own personality. Because then you also have to understand that you may be talking within those personas, right? I just said those three. You may be talking to a manager level, or you may be talking to a director or a vice president, or maybe even C-level. And you have to figure out, what do they all care about? So within those three, right, those three personas, software, IT, DevOps, there's also three roles within those three that you have to know how to kind of pivot to. So a script, again, works foundational wise, but eventually you're going to have to understand the nuance to speak within your, like, those your match your personality.
Okay. So in terms of, now that we've defined BDR and we've looked into some of the work, I mean, that's just a small portion, or maybe 90%, because BDRs. When we talk about automating or jobs becoming obsolete, it's mainly because there's a lot of things that can be automated. Right? When it comes to BDRs, for it to be obsolete, that means 100% of the job can be automated. So what do you think can be automated in the BDR world, and what cannot be automated?
I mean, with the advent of Chat GPT, when it comes to emails, I think, things that are involving text could be, could be automated. Although I'm also learning though now that with emails, there still needs to be a level of personalization that I still feel that an AI service can't do, because if we're talking, and if we're looking at sending out just like regular mass emails, yeah, we can automate that. But then it becomes a time where we need to personalize, literally, like we need to customize our emails or to text based on that individual, because that individual could be doing multiple things. They could be doing in a certain degree or capacity. And I think AI right now can't necessarily really pivot to that. But yeah, in terms of like sending out those kind of I don't want to call them spam emails, because there is like some random reason, but
Well,
bulk emails could be automated.
a lot of companies filter out, like a customer of mine. If I were to create an email list and send to my customer the same emails I would send one by one, they would get filtered out. They would be away, which is, I think, what your company currently, tries to solve. So
Correct.
yeah, with ChatGPT, or I mean, it could automate writing the email. I don't know if it will automate sending the email and like responding and going back and forth, but like
Right.
to John Kerr, he was on the podcast. I think you were on the same podcast, and he talked about like my bot talking to your bot and getting information. I feel like that's more for our inbound leads. If I want something, then I go on to your website and start chatting with the bot. But if I don't know that there's a solution, like especially for, I feel like BDRs would be useful in a new market, like some new solution that nobody knows about, right? That people don't have awareness about. But also marketing helps with that too. So what can't be automated with BDRs?
And I'm gonna go with Greg Casal, who's the CEO of Reveneer, and he's put out a lot of content and even research on this whole phenomena. But I still believe cold call is still king. I think people crave that natural, that they need they want they create people still crave, especially during the pandemic where more people are remote than ever. Uh, People crave that human interaction over a
Yeah,
robot.
but nobody craves a
Uh,
cold call.
Nobody
Craves
what
a cold call.
craves
Yeah,
it. Well,
yeah. I would never want you, like, if anyone says like, "Oh, you're looking forward to a cold call," like my answer is always no.
yeah, and that's funny. And that's funny because LinkedIn had a survey that said, if you could block, I think it was even from the org that I'm in. They said if you can block any of these four, which would it be? It was like spam email, spam something, spam call, and something else that would spam. And a lot of people put spam calls. But here's what I want to say though: if you're speaking to somebody's problem though, they'll thank you for it. Like, it's now coming down to that person who reaches out and says, like, I'm not, yeah, I understand this is a spam call, this could be a cold call, but I noticed that you doing some heavy research. I noticed that you're having issues with this, or you're dealing with this specific situation. Well, we can help you in this,
Yeah.
and so if you could speak it correctly to these executives or to these managers, they'll thank you for it. They're like, thank God you're saving me time. You're saving me from resources. You're allowing me to, free up time to think about more visionary concepts. Like you're really helping us out. And so
Yeah.
if people know how to speak it, they can.
Well,
It actually would be a good thing.
if people know how to hook it, right? Initially,
Sure.
because if I get a cold call, I'll usually hang up within the first 30 seconds. Well, that was before I got into sales. Now I actually give them a chance, and most of them don't know how to cold call. Like don't know how to hook me in. It's like, yeah, I'm not interested in any of that. Uh, but yeah, I would agree. And I feel like a lot of the BDR stuff can be automated. Like writing emails can be automated to some extent. You might need someone to like still monitor and look at it, but the cold calls is the one that's different. It could be the cold calls like, hey, just check out the website and go talk to our bot if you don't want to talk to me, right? And then we'll chat. So yeah, that's
Yeah. Again, I want to let people know, like, here's what I agree and here's where I disagree. Like, I agree that what can be automated is like just those like I've been in orgs already where we have like a cadence where maybe the first emails are very personalized, and then after that, if they're not answering, they're not viewing it, they're not doing any kind of activity with it, then the remaining emails are just click, 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 click. But I think those templatized kind of emails to just give them information, because also people are just we have these people who are not necessarily sold in on the product yet, but they want to get more information to then ultimately make a decision, which is why some of these people will go on our website. Maybe they're looking at competitors. They're like, well, we have this issue. Let's go look. And so they're kind of like passively looking at this information, this kind of like templatized emails. And so that kind of works. We're just giving them kind of like an extra data point to figure out where they are in the purchasing decision. Yeah. But then there's the other house of emails where I feel can't be automated. Like there's sometimes you look at somebody, they may be two marketing operations managers, or they can be a director of IT and a director of software, and one has been at the org for 20 years while someone just got there only a year. Like, how do you get to that granularity or specificity to where you can be personalized to these individuals?
So the heavy research might be able, like, you can automate that to the extent that it will not make the job obsolete. It will actually make the job more efficient.
Right. There was a podcast with Tom Bilyeu. They had a guy who was, he's a very big proponent of AI. And he said, AI is not going to put people out of work. It's those who leverage AI that are going to put other people out of work who do not use AI. So I feel this is one of those times where the best BDRs who leverage AI, who leverage some kind of automation, are going to win, because it's going to be between that and also the whole personable factor, like I said, with cold calls and getting those kind of very specific personalized emails.
Okay, so let's jump into that. How are you leveraging AI? If you are.
For now, yeah, for a little bit right now. If I have to write up reports, and I'm doing research on a company, I'll use Chat GPT to let me understand, like, how does a company make revenue, because I'll of course use this information to inform my AE, my sales rep, so that they can have more fruitful conversations with prospective customers. So I use Chat GPT for that. To write up my report to understand how does a company really make their revenue, what do they do, how could they, just a couple little informations like that. I have other people that I know who are using it for their email outreach as well, to just add an extra pocket of information on top of their personalized emails. So they're adding a little bit of the personalization, which is very much the human factor, the non-AI factor, and then they're sprinkling a little bit of the AI to just be like, look, this is what your company is doing, and this is how we're solving it. I want to get more involved in that whole AI aspect too, just because I know that AI is definitely doing some heavy lifting in a portion of things.
I'm surprised you write reports. Like, for a lot of SDRs, they just set up an appointment and it's like, oh, this is what we talked about. Like, here, they're interested in this product. Yeah. Good luck.
And here's another thing for people. So I'm kind of speaking today to just, maybe it could be inspiration, but just also let people know who are considering the role SDR, BDR, what it could entail. But every organization I noticed thus far, because I've been now at 4 organizations as a BDR, they all vary. Like, this current one is asking me to do a detailed report, almost like as if I'm a junior AE, write the stuff down that would make one prepared to have a better conversation with a customer. So yeah, this org I'm writing it. The last org I used to put some of my notes in Salesforce because I'm just like, well, I want this AE to be informed, so I'll write it. And other BDRs wouldn't do this. So, but I think this is really much a cool thing to really break down from, like, past conversations we may have had with that company. What are they? What do they do? How could we help them in regards to that? What are they doing with revenue? How could we help them in regards to that? Other potential stakeholders that we may want to continue reaching out to for prospective meetings and conversations. It's really detailed, and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's been in sales for a little bit now, I always prefer more information than less. I don't always trust it, but at least I'll have an idea of where to come. Like at least I have something to start with. Like, hey, my SDR said this. Do you agree with my SDR statements? Yes, no. If yes, great. Let's dig into it. If no, all right, tell me more. Right? But at least it starts the conversation, and maybe the SDR is onto something. Maybe he misunderstood something that could be helpful. Right? That will help the customer open their eyes. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of jobs that everyone's worried about them being obsolete,
Mhm.
but they always end up not being obsolete. I mean, if you look at like car manufacturers, yes, like a lot of people, like auto workers, their job was replaced by robots, but then someone has to operate the robots, which is what
Mhm.
you said. Basically, people who leverage AI will be able to be a lot more efficient. And I'm trying to think the same thing for SEs. Like, there's a lot of tools right now that are out there that can help us be more efficient at our jobs. Like if it's the same demo, if I have to go do the same demo for the fifth time today with the customer, with no really information about the customer for me to customize it, then maybe I'm just better off recording it and sending a video, right? And then starting a conversation after that, versus like an SE. I've talked to so many SEs who this is one of the questions I ask them, like, hey, how many times do you do the same demos? Like all day, every day? Like, then you're easily replaceable. If you're doing the same demo all day, every day, you're nothing more than recording.
Yeah.
And not only that, if you're doing the same demo all day, every day, you're bored. I actually had a conversation with someone who's like, I've told the same story like 600 times, and like I don't know if I want to say it anymore. It's like, all right, well, change it up, make it interesting, right?
Yeah.
The good movies, like I've watched Lord of the Rings so many times I can't even remember. Right? But I watched the same movie over and over. So how can you make a story interesting, even to you? Yeah.
Yeah. And you had me thinking about this too because, man, uh, I feel like I'm an advocate for BDR for the sales development, business development role because people want to leave the BDR role as quickly as they can because besides either people don't like rejections or they think it's the monotony of just calling and emailing. I've managed still to this day, even though I've been in the role for, going on 3 years, to find something novel about it. Like I always try to continue leveling up, and just being like, it's not just me cold calling. It's me, pivoting, changing up my talk track when I talk to when I talk to these personas, tweaking a little bit, asking questions, sprinkling that in, so it's not just me just spitting off of a script. It's me also having a conversation, and each conversation is always going to be different.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it like exciting and novel for me.
BDR is hard. It's not a hard job to do. Right? I don't think it's a skill wise. It's a hard job to get started in. It's hard to stay in that role when you're getting rejected all the time. But the level of skill that you can develop from having tough skin to being able to, like, it's kind of a marketing job where you're calling someone up and you know how they do YouTube videos and say you need to hook someone in the first 30 seconds. It's the same thing. You need to hook someone in the first 30 seconds so that they can stay on the phone, and then you can help them solve their problem or help them build the vision of solving their problem, because BDRs don't solve any problems, let's be honest. So
That's why I disagree.
well, you solve problems for sales teams. I can say that.
It's tough though because look, I know the guy named Corporate Bro, right? He does all his little skits on like sales and stuff, and he makes fun of like BDRs. I mean, the nature of BDR is a lot of them just got out of college. They're very green in both not only technology or the company or job wise, but also in the world. So they don't have the depth, of life that life has hit them with, and the wisdom to really get into asking or having really deep conversations with, I'm not gonna, it doesn't have to be deep. I'm just saying, but like like really getting the really quality like discussions that AEs are looking for. So they, of course, they always are very surface level and they kind of just lack luster. And
Well,
but I think
they can't get deep. It's even account managers, depending on the products and whatever, have a hard time getting deep. And that's why there's SEs. If SDRs and BDRs can get deep into the product and into the problems, then you don't need an SDR. You don't need an account manager. You don't need a sales engineer. Just have the SDR do
sure,
everything. But each one has
sure.
their job because sales is so complicated. They've broken down the role into SDRs and BDRs to bring in leads, account managers to manage the opportunities and accounts, SEs to solve the problems, and then account managers to close the deal, and in some cases customer success to maintain the relationship afterwards. If it was simple, you would just have one person doing the entire thing and save a lot of money. I don't have to pay 6 people. SDRs, SDRs and SDR managers, right? They're account executives and their managers, SEs and their managers, CSMs and their managers, professional services and their managers, implementations, right? Because it's such a complicated world, the products are complicated, the customers are complicated. Otherwise, you wouldn't need any of this. So
Yeah. I was thinking of something like business development reps are like they're cross between, you could say they're sales, but they're also marketing, because some things that marketing can't do, we fill that gap, especially through whether it's through calls or emails. Like we're the flyer passers in a
it's called
sense,
email
but we
marketing,
also have to
right?
sell.
It's called email marketing,
Yeah,
except you're targeted marketing, right?
sure,
Marketing is
right,
for everybody to see, whoever is available to see it. You are picking and choosing
right,
who you're going to market for, and it's the same message.
right,
It has to be catchy. It has to solve a problem. It has to bring it in, whether it's on the phone. Uh, but it's much harder than marketing, because marketing, we say, all right, we're going to send an email to 1 million people, and if 10% read it, that's great. Whereas SDRs can only call how many people per day? 50 people, 60 people per day.
100 for some organizations.
Well, if no one answers, you can call 60 people. And if one person answers, now you have to take time to actually talk to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a tough job. I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't want.
I think. Yeah, and you know what? I do believe, I was thinking about it. I was that it does take a specific person to be who to like this job. Like like
To like,
I have
yeah,
formed.
to like.
So yeah, I mean, like I enjoy it. Like maybe it's because I've become to a philosophy. I also have perspective too, right? Like I've been able to, I served in the military. I had done my fair share of knocking on doors and doing door sales. Like I believe in entrepreneurship and having to, I see this also as another way of I don't know. I have formed my own philosophy about this role that has allowed me to thrive in it and not feel like I'm
What is
suffering.
that
Because some
philosophy?
people do this,
What is
huh?
that philosophy? Can you summarize it, or is it just like a mentality that you feel?
Yes, well, sometimes it's a little bit of a mentality that what the fuck? Okay, I'm a little bit in the mentality of where it's kind of something that I can't explain. Maybe it's just due to the upbringing. I've just learned it, and it's now become like in the back of my head, and it's like second
Yeah.
nature. And then there's another thing called perspective. Like I've had some really rough jobs. Like I had worked in the industry where it was tough. Like you had to worry about your safety, and it was stressful. And a job like this is pretty easy to me. Like I have a mixture of that perspective and then the philosophy that I've made for myself. Like I see this as a role where I am like, dude, like I'm like whenever I talk to them, whenever I talk to someone or email someone, like I'm helping to solve a problem, a potential problem. I'm saying, look, you didn't know that this product exists. Here it is now. I'm presenting it to you. You didn't know, you have a problem. Guess what? We have a solution for you. And I'm super happy when they go, wow, this is something that is of importance to me. Let me get in on a call to talk further more in detail. And I'm like, yes, this is great. See, like bringing value. I feel like, like I'm helping those out who are in need. I mean, there's a whole list of things that I've come up with, but it's a mixture of perspective and this experience that led me to be like, I love this
It's so
role.
funny. like this has nothing to do with sales engineering, but yesterday I experienced something. I was having a really bad day. Yes.
Yep.
Some things happened. Like it wasn't huge in the grand scheme of things. Like I got pissed at my son for ignoring me. Parents. Other things happened, all small stuff, and I was so not having a bad day, not having a good day. And then, like in the afternoon, throughout the day, I learned that one of my acquaintances had some form of sickness. They're better now, but that that's like, all right. And then another friend of mine just told me that they had a flooding in their basement, and they found 5 cracks, and it's going to cost them around $50,000 to fix it. I'm like, yeah, I don't have the right to have a bad day. Like speaking of perspective, right? Like, they're having a bad day. My friend, my acquaintance who was sick, they had a bad whatever time. It wasn't a day. It was like so. Yes, like perspective. I mean, cold calls don't seem so bad after a friend of yours is going to pay $50,000 to fix their basement, right? So yeah, I agree with that.
There's a guy on LinkedIn too, which also adds to my perspective. That's why I was like, I'm thankful. I have a job like this. He was once homeless, and he told the story on LinkedIn, of course. That he was living on the streets and eating out of garbage cans, and then he got an SDR position, and he was like, "Look, I'm thankful. Like I could still be on the streets making no money and living like horribly." He goes, "But since I've been in this role, I think this guy wants to be a lifelong SDR because he's been an SDR from what I saw for at least like 5 years." But he keeps going. He gets into organizations that are paying him well. And he's like, look, man, he goes, I make 6 figures. Of course, if you combine the salary and the commission, and he's probably really good at the whole cold outreach and he's getting prospects. Dude, the commission is great on top of that. So you get your salary, you get your commission. And so what? Yeah, you deal with people who reject you, but eventually it just becomes, I don't want to say desensitized, but you get used to it. But he looks at it perspective wise. He could be living on the street still, making no money. That's a harsher reality to live than someone going, no, I don't want your product. Sorry, click. Like, what's that to him? The last thing we talked about was perspective. Like again, I want to say like people, and what I've been talking about, what I've been hearing from other, even salespeople, a lot of people see the BDR, SDR position as beneath them. That's number one. They think it's just like, they see it as an entry level thing. But if you do your research, you'll start noticing that there's people who've been in the role for over a few years, and this is the career that they want to be in. I've been following those influencers out there, but they've been at like really good organizations, ones with big names, and they're there as the SDR. Maybe they're the lead SDR, they're the senior SDR, whatever they are. And they're doing fine, but a lot of people still see it as like, I don't want to get this job because they think it's like a crappy job, and they got to deal with rejections. That's all that comes in the forefront of their head. Just like the whole idea of the SE role, where they started putting on TikTok and they sensationalized it or whatever. They glorified it, saying, "Oh, this is the best role on the earth," which I think SE position is a great role, but the way they market it, they were like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about doing cold calls." Like, is that what the SE role entails? No, it's not. It's not just, we understand you don't do cold calls, but you do a little bit more work. And you have talked about this before at Ramsey, that yes, you love the job, but there's sometimes it becomes a job and you have to do some stuff that can be, a painstaking, or it can be,
It's a job. It's a job that at times is very much fun and makes, depending on the company you work for, you can make a lot of money. But in the end, I've realized it's a job. Like I'm in sales now, it's a job. It gets me the ability to take care of my family. Like unless you're doing the thing that you like, unless you're an NBA player, even NBA players, it ends up being a job in the end. That's why some people just start drinking and slack off, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you're forced to do it for money to survive, it's a job. And as you're talking about beneath them, a lot of people think that garbage men or women are beneath them. But if there weren't any garbage men and women, our whole city would be full of garbage. That being said, many people don't want to be like. I'm not advocating you should be garbage people because it's not beneath you. So, some people have to do it because that's how they can feed their family, and some people can do something else. There's nothing wrong with SDRs. I would have not. I don't want to be an SDR, not because it's beneath me. It's just because I don't think there's any fun aspects to it. sales, there's fun aspects to it, in my opinion, right?
Mm.
It's what I'm good at. It's solving the problem after, right? Other people are like yourself are great at getting people hooked and wanting to solve the problem, but I wouldn't be able to do my job if you weren't around, right? If that makes sense.
Right, and people understanding, like, what brings me the excitement is I'm not just calling or emailing people. I'm also leveraging marketing resources, right? Using the resources they gave me. Also, customer success stories where customers, where we've gotten customers and helped solve their problem, and there's a win story about it, like how we were able to help them shave time on this, help increase revenue by this much, and then also the detective work. I have to still do a lot of research. I have to do a lot of, like, even this thing on the side, like forming relationships. And I tell people, like, man, I get paid for just talking and messaging people, which I think, like there's I mean, again, I don't want to simplify it because there's a lot of stuff that comes into the talk, but like I just see there's just so much positives from the role because, like, I get to do detective work. I get to leverage other resources, especially the last companies where I had to speak to technical people because I enjoy having those, whether they're brief or not, technical conversations. As a guy who went to software development school and now is a graduate of Dell Technologies Pre-Sales Academy, like I can have more fruitful conversations, even though it can be somewhat very high level, superficial. And I think from me compared to another BDR, a BDR has to, most BDRs are up here while I at least can get a little bit down here. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I have a little bit more of that technical knowledge and experience. So I enjoy it. It's a very all encompassing role for me. I made it that
I
way.
agree. And the one reason I wouldn't want BDRs to like go extinct is because then I'd have to find another group of people to make fun of. So
Yes, we're here for your amusement.
thank you. All right, Matt. I think we've talked quite a bit about this. Any final thoughts?
I mean, for those, again, this is for those people out there who have never been, and again, this is just the BDR role in tech. I know this can be the BDR role in so many different industries, just like there's an SE in manufacturing and SE now I learned in IT. But this is just for those people who are considering to jump in the BDR role or make their transition into tech. Like, don't, like, really explore it and see it as maybe as a gateway into whatever next role you want to be in, but also don't just see it as this thing where you think, oh, like, it's a horrible thing. Like, you can, depending on the org, depending on the team, depending on the product, you could actually find a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment in the role. So forget the naysayers who think that the BDR role is a crappy role. You could actually find a good one out there for you.
My final thought on this is like something I mentioned at the start. It doesn't matter what role you use. It doesn't matter what role you have. My Arabic is my immigrant is coming up. Doesn't matter what role you have. Vet the manager, because the manager can make your life good and make you enjoy the role, or can make your life horrible. And no matter what role you're in, you're gonna hate it. It sucks that one person can have such a effect, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Thanks,
Where
Ramsey.
can people connect with you? Are you still doing YouTube?
I need to get back on that, but yes, you could add me. You could check all my stuff out too on the Tony Mosey podcast on YouTube. But also, if anyone wants to reach out to me, talk anything about tech and BDR and whatnot, you could ping me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/ or I think it's linkedin.com/in/Anthony-Palmoze.
Okay. I'm gonna make it easier for people, and I'm gonna put your thingamajig in the show notes. I'm just trying to find, LinkedIn Anthony-Palmoze. It's not that hard. Okay. I don't know why you made it sound that difficult.
Because that whole link, man, it's just, you gotta make sure you put the in there, otherwise it's not gonna come up.
Okay, I don't know what N stands for now that I think about it. All right, anyways, that's a topic for a different day. We'll have a separate podcast discussing the in LinkedIn, and we'll talk later.
Awesome.
With that, I'm signing off.